The old man manually steered the oil tanker by hand. A steel beam went haywire and punched right through the hull. He knew instantly that the steering was shot, but then he remembered there was another way. Just minutes earlier, he'd spotted a weld seam on the ship's hull. Even worse, the tanker was plowing through a violent storm, so he quickly tried to call the captain to slow down, but the phone was dead. The next second, seawater came flooding into the cabin. Everyone freaked out in an instant. When the crew went looking for the captain, they discovered the ship had actually split in half. The crew got ready to escape in the lifeboats, but he suggested they stay put and wait for rescue, because the storm would tear any small boat to shreds. The crew wouldn't listen to him though, so he grabbed an axe and walked toward them, then chopped the lifeboat to pieces. The crew stared at the destroyed lifeboat, then lunged at him, but he stood his ground, and told them they had to stick together, or they'd all end up drowning. So they decided to pump the water out of the ship, but it was flooding way too fast. Just then, a crew member on deck spotted a sandbar. The crew quickly passed word to steer left. They were getting close to the sandbar, when another massive wave hit, but suddenly he noticed the chain nearby, so he had the crew rig up a makeshift steering system. He thought for a few seconds, then made a shocking decision. He was going to attempt an extreme turn, so he started cranking the valve like crazy, watching the gauge needle about to max out. The crew grabbed onto the railings, terrified. Then suddenly the ship's bottom hit a reef. The crew got thrown around, but he held on tight. He quickly shut down the engines, but the massive impact caused an explosion inside the ship. He hit the deck fast, but amazingly, the ship had made it onto the sandbar. They were surrounded by water though, and it kept pouring into the ship, even blocking the engine intake. Before they could catch their breath, the ship lost all power. The crew realized, once the ship lost power, they were pretty much done for. But right then, a beam of light swept across the water toward them. The crew rushed up to the deck. When they saw it was just a small boat, their hopes crashed again. But hey, it was better than nothing. So the crew lowered a rope ladder and started jumping into the water one by one. But then the tanker suddenly shifted. One crew member got crushed and killed in the water. The remaining crew snapped back to reality. Then he directed them to jump at the right moment, but the small boat was already overloaded. One guy suggested heading back first, but another shot that down, because there was no time left. So they decided to go for broke and leave the rest up to fate. Just when everyone was preparing for the worst, the wind suddenly changed direction, and they finally made it onto the small boat, riding the waves toward shore.